Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Build, Paint, Play. I'm Dave.
I'm Jake, and we are joined by the wonderful, the fantabulous, the legendary John Matthews.
Hello.
Welcome, John. Welcome.
Very
welcome.
kind.
Boss, I wore this. I wore this for you. Old school.
Wow, that is an old shirt. Yeah. Wow.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Just quickly, I'm going to let everybody know that my monitor over here, I usually have our YouTube studio thing going here. So I usually look at the chat on this one. And for some reason, YouTube is telling me something went wrong. There's a monkey with a hammer. It's not showing the chat. But the chat is happening over here. And I'm going to say hi to Luis, hi to Scott. Scott says, okay, let's have the best show ever. Hank Edley is here. Hi, Hank. He's on time tonight.
Nice.
Matt Bowles is here. Dave Hummel has joined us. Hello, hello. Jez Hunt is here. Jeff Smith. I think you might have met Jeff before, John.
Yeah, I'm going now.
Amos is here as well.
Oh, him as well.
Yeah, yep. Everybody's ganging up on you. Matt Bowles says, "Who are these people?"
And him.
And Richard Ralph as well. Good evening, everyone. So, welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget during the evening at some stage, click the like button. That'll help us out.
Yeah, do all the stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, post it somewhere, comment.
Yep. Share. But yes, there we go. I think that's all my initial intro stuff. Jake, would you like to introduce John?
I'm honored. I'm honored to
explain more about John rather than just how fantabulous he is.
Sure. I mean, that's all you really need to know. But
I was going to say, what more is needed?
We're done. That's it.
I like context around my fantabulousness.
Sure. So for a lot of the folks in the chat, like you said, Amos and Matt and Jeff, and I'm sure other people will jump on too. We all had the pleasure of working for John at Games Workshop. I met John in 2003-ish, I think, is when I came on and met him. And he was my boss's boss. So I had Drogi Karamba was my area manager. And then I had, I think Shauno at the time was my district manager. And then John was at the time, he was the only VP in the company. And then they added three more later on when they quartered up the United States. But so John basically ran, I forget, were you VP of not sales, because you did trade and you did the stores.
Yeah, the title was VP of the Northeast region. So the idea was that we would do regionalized sales of mail order would stay central,
yep,
direct sales, and then trade and retail would work together, which had not been tried before. So workshops are a funny old beast. Is we were always infighting inside. So trade boys would swagger around as though they owned the place. Retail would be exactly the same, thinking they owned the place, while everybody in the studio thought they owned the place. It was just bizarre.
So we worked for John.
We knew we didn't own the place, but we were certainly caretaking it.
So we all worked for John for years. So like Matt and Jeff both worked in trade. Jeff Hall was head of events. Dave was in the studio along with John and some of the other guys we've have it on. I was in retail. I was one of the bunker managers. And then John Stallard was John's boss, and and then we went through the dark times where everybody kind of left, and now people are always asking us, how do you know all these guys? And I'm like, we all worked at Games Workshop. Like everybody did. So
it's odd, because I think there's been 3 major transitions of workshop, and I was lucky enough to join in the second one. So the first one was under Ansel, and the stories that he told, that were told about him and how it grew, were quite amazing, really. I mean, the man was a visionary and also quite balmy at times, and he would say that if he was still alive. He literally tried things that hadn't been done before. I mean, one of the times when Workshop and Citadel had joined together, so that's a thing that's not as commonly known, is that Ansel came into Games Workshop, and he was the one who made the figures. Citadel, his father, set up the business, and they put them in these blisters, and they were doing that, and they just would not sell. They couldn't make any volume. So, normal people might go along going, oh, well, we've got to cut the price or anything. He doubled the price. Doubled the price overnight, and lo and behold, they started selling. And you've got to scratch your head and go, what? Why? But maybe it was just now they had way more perceived value.
Yep.
And people got into it, and of course then the money started going, which allowed him to do more things. And then of course you have the Kirby and Prentice, the buyout, and that's where I joined in there, and that was a massive thing. So I've always described it as on the shoulder of giants. So I was lucky enough to stand on the shoulder of giants. And I know this sounds a little big-headed, but I've been told many times by later, and we stood on your shoulders, John. Not that I was responsible for everything, but we had a good success. We ran with it, and when I say we, all my peers that I was in the same business with, they all did phenomenal success and grew the business until it changed into the morph that it is now. And I think some of that is because of the 2 sets of giants that before. And now you look at what they're doing and going, it dwarfs what we did. Numbers wise, they're massive.
Speaking of that, so Matt Bowles jumped in and said, like when he talked about doubling the price, Matt said they're still using that strategy today. Jez says he's been loving watching all the interviews and history of GW on Jordan Sorcery and Film Deg. Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely, for sure. And Scott said, I remember that time period. Ian Livingstone's son's claim to the throne was refuted, and GW split into 5 separate kingdoms. The wars were brutal. Warframe kits and pewter gyrocopters were made.
And then Cliff Edders, another one of our GW brethren who jumped on. It was wild. Like I tell people I was there. Like if you look at it like Lord of the Rings, I was there kind of like at the fall of the Third Age. So like everything's still good, and then like the Dark Lord was sighted, and things kind of went sideways, and there were a lot of bad decisions. And they brought in somebody from the toy industry who I'm not going to name, and he literally Wile E. Coyote dynamited the North American business. And then that's when we had the dark times, which is, I think one time it was either Cliff or Blair or somebody sat down and somebody mapped out. We lost something like, it's something insane. It's like 480 years of experience quit over the course of like 12 months. It's bonkers how many people left. So then you had the dark times. And then at the end of the dark times, they tried to reboot stuff. That's when you had the launch of Age of Sigmar, and you had different guys getting promoted. And 7th edition comes out of basically the guts of the original Horus Heresy edition. 7th is basically the same system. And then they finally went out and got a real CEO instead of an acting CEO. And since then, he's made a lot of business decisions, but there's so much stuff that's way below his pay grade that is just like, I'm convinced there's still like a guy with a pencil and a clipboard running their inventory system. Like it just does not make any sense. Like nothing's ever in stock. It's just because, Kevin, who's been there since like just after the Great War, is like 2 gyrocopter kits. Oh, 3 gyrocopter kits. Like, I mean, like that, it's a mess. So
yeah, that I can't comment on because, of course, I'm out of that side of it and haven't done retail, especially ordering, in a long, long time. But I still know many trade accounts, and pretty much every one of them has a similar story. And of course, because I know them from old, they go, this would never have happened under you, John. It's like, yeah, it was. My second year in Games Workshop America, we had $2.5 million worth of out stocks.
Yeah.
$2.5 million. And we were only doing 23 million in sales. So 10-ish%. Now, I would always say there that actually half that amount was real, because, somebody like your store would phone up and say, I want Space Marines. Okay, which ones? Devastators. Right, we're out. Okay, can you put me down for 2? Yeah. Then next week, it would be, a Space Marine Devastators in? No. Can I have 2? Hey, Jake wants 4.
I mean, we get that now. Like Ben, my business partner Ben, had to like go back and basically pull up our orders and change it because they were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But so to continue the saga, after John left Games Workshop, he then got hired literally the next day by Battlefront Gale Force 9 and was the president of that company for years until he decided to retire a couple of months ago. So
nearly 2 years ago.
Well, we'll see how long that lasts. But
yeah.
Well, it's funny. As someone said, I was cosplaying Jeff Smith at Gen Con because a certain bugger didn't turn up, Jeff. So I went there, and one of the UK chats called Matt Vaughan, he said, I win. I'm like, what do you mean you win? He said, I told you you'd be back before 2 years was up, and you're here.
Yeah.
He is right.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I knew jump us into a couple of things that we usually do at the start of each show. So give me a second here, John, and we will move in. I mentioned I was talking to John before the show, giving him a sort of rundown of our format, and letting him know that one of the things we do early on is we thank the Army Painter, our season sponsor. So this week I pulled up this image from Instagram. So if you head to the Army Painter YouTube channel, you got to check out Eric and Stefan from the Army Painter building the arena that they're using for the Arena of Escalation sort of activity, I guess, hobby activity, gaming, that kind of thing at the Army Painter HQ. So be able to check out how he built that. And also, if you haven't seen Eric before, he has Eric's Hobby Workshop YouTube channel. And also, if you head back a couple of months, you'll be able to see us interviewing him on BuildPaintPlay. So very cool there. Hobby-wise, John, have you been up to anything hobby-wise recently?
Very little, actually. I am busily preparing to start a new Chaos Army for Old World, and finally got my 30 by 30 bases and 60 by 30s and that sort of thing. So I've been collecting a lot of models.
That counts. That's hobby stuff.
Sure.
That's it, true. Yeah. And I do get a few games in with Mr. Smith and Amos on Blood Bowling. In fact, we're supposed to meet up sometime this month, and I've been very lazy going, I must get up there. So I haven't forgotten you, Jeff.
Excellent.
But no, the thing I've since retirement is we gutted this house and have been putting it together. So that's my excuse, is we've been far too busy making somewhere to sleep.
You're making 1-to-1 scale terrain.
Yes, that's actually a good way of putting it.
Awesome. Jake, what about you?
I didn't get a ton done this week. I've been kind of parsing through my collection to try to blow some stuff out. Moved a bunch of stuff. Did a little bit of building this week, like prepped some stuff and washed some kits. I didn't realize I had this. I was like going through some of my stuff and I don't know where I got it. I think one of Adam Pratt's buddies like left it or at the store or gave it to us or something. I have one of the Marauder bomber or the Marauder destroyer kits.
All right.
World, that's in like 1 million pieces and it's broken into like chunks. So I don't know if somebody dropped it or whatever, but so I'm like, well, I'll try to wash this thing and put this back together at some point, but or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just sell it to Steven and Steven can add it to his collection. But yeah, it's a lot of like, where did I get this kind of thing? So
yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of like organizing and sorting and stuff. I haven't done a ton of like hobby, like I haven't gotten a ton of hobby work done.
Right. Okay. All right. So I've got quite a bit, but just quickly, Brett Abbott has also joined us in the chat.
Oh, wow. I'll just say, Brett Abbott, $1 for chaos.
Well, he said chaos, of course, should have known. Awesome. And Alan Borthwick from New Zealand has joined us too. So he says, afternoon all, just survived a 3-hour business planning session. Looking forward to something lighter.
Oh dear, poor fellow.
We'll try and keep it light for you, mate. See how we go.
No promises, but
yeah, no promises. Cool.
Dave,
okay,
how many 1,000-point armies did you knock out?
Well,
those are nice.
Thank you. I got my first squad of BPs painted up and on their bases.
Dude, I love the Cybermastiff. What is that weird bird thing in the back?
So that's the I think it's called the Nuncio Aquila.
It's a chicken.
It is a chicken. It's a golden chicken.
Nice.
It's a floating golden chicken. But essentially that it floats around and the leader of the squad can give out commands through it.
Oh, okay. I imagine it just floats around playing like Ride of the Valkyries.
Right. It's in the game. It's really a token, so that they have a particular ability that either makes one of them not battle shocked or can cause an enemy unit to take a battle shock test, and then you remove it from the board. That kind of thing. But Matt Paul says if you can catch the golden chicken, you win.
Yeah. Back in the day, when Trade used to send out trade packs to prospective new accounts, myself and Steve Hambrook from Specialist Games fame, we were opening a store in Lincolnshire, and they sent us our bites, and that's the first 40k unit that he painted up.
Oh, nice.
Not as well as that, but then that was when they just came with shotguns.
Right. Yep. This one's got the executioner shotgun, which is that big one with the silencer on it, or the suppressor.
I love the idea of putting a suppressor on a shotgun. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You can do it,
though. Excellent. The other thing I was going to say that I done is so as some of you folks know, I do a column for Game Trade magazine each month called Painting Happy Little Minis, and the December issue is going to have how I painted the bases that I've been doing for my squad. I've got them. Yeah.
They look
Is
great.
that for a Necromunda squad or just general 40k?
I'm doing it like an Inquisition army, Imperial Agents army. So
Sweet.
it
Yeah,
continues,
they are proper Necromunda looking bases. So
it continues to grow. But yeah, it's they're the Void War bases set, but essentially they're just like Necromunda ones. What else? The other thing that I've been doing is finishing off
Joshua Lai stuff.
fun. Yeah, that's Joshua's and some of Sam's. But basically, yeah, the books that I've been working on, the Art of volumes 10, 11, and 12 have now been completed. I got a text from Sam on Saturday saying, I approve. We've done it, Dave. And I was like, okay, fantastic. That's the last thing I needed.
Yep.
Sunday morning, I prepped all of the files and sent them off to the printers. Sent them off to the printers. Monday morning, I get an email back saying, hey, thanks for the files. Here are all the things that are wrong with them. And I was like, okay, I'll make those changes today. Are you sure that's all of it? And they were like, yep, that's all of it. So I fixed all of those things, sent them the new files. This morning, get an email saying, thanks for sending those files. Here are the things that are wrong with them.
You're like, no. As per my last email.
It was like, okay, no, these are all new things, but I will get them fixed and send them off. So now I just have to wait for tomorrow morning to find out the other things that I've missed. But it's a tough part with working with a printer in Lithuania where we're 7 hours difference. By the time I get the files back to them, they've left for the day. But be all good. We're on track to be able to send these out in March next year, so I'm excited about that.
Nice. They look great.
Exactly. They do look good. They do look super cool, and they're all very different as well. Just like the artists are all different, so I'm excited about that. And I think this is my last opportunity to plug it, but there's a link down in the notes below. We'll be closing up the pre-order store at the end of the month.
So if you guys want them, it'll be Joshua Lai, Sam Lenz, and Roman Lepat.
Yep. So super excited. They're on the way. And Matt Bolt says, "Why, Dave? Is there a new book set on the way?" Actually, there'll be a new book coming in January, and then 3 more in April. So be prepared.
I'm building a new wing in my personal library for all of Dave's.
That's cool.
Part of.
I think not next year, but the year after, we'll have a Kallax bookshelf as an add-on.
An unlockable upgrade. I like it.
Yeah, an optional upgrade indeed. But it should be cool. Scott says Deep Cut Studios has been looked away here, I believe. We've dealt with them a couple of times, and we were able to set aside our cultural differences and really come together. Hope you can do the same. Excellent. So yeah, the Deep Cut Studios do awesome neoprene mats. If you haven't seen those, go and check those out. What else do we have? Oh, okay. So that's it. That's the hobby stuff that I've done this week.
Nice.
Actually, where is she?
A bromance since 2003.
Yep.
I
was to be fair, I was always second fiddle to Jeff Brooks. Jeff Brooks was the favored bromance in there.
Yeah, but I moved him to Malaysia so to keep away from him.
Yeah.
And
I painted up this model as another Inquisitor.
What is that from?
I think it's from like I don't know where it's from really. Blackstone Fortress maybe.
That's pretty cool. I like it.
My favorite thing is that the servo skull there.
Does it have hair?
Pardon?
Does it have hair?
No, it doesn't have hair. It's got it's like a golden plate on the side.
It totally looks like a sweet comb over,
yeah, it does look like
a
that.
gold-plated comb over.
But it's loading around into the revolver.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Okay, that's the last time I'm going to get an opportunity to talk for the rest of the show. But...
He was saying this last week, and I was like, it's not like it's the episode that we had Ash on was probably the worst. Like Ash and I, that was a lot. Like I'll admit that was a lot.
Some would say the best as well.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't want to quantify it for anybody. That's up to them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so. This is John and I. I want to say this is like, I think this is like Adepticon 2016 or 2017.
I'm going to say 2016.
Could be. I mean, I've still got some brown, blackish hair in there, so it's got to be 6 or 7 years old, easy.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like this is kind of like the photo I try to get at every show is usually John and I hugging or like in a photo together, screwing around. So, always a pleasure. But yeah, like again, can't say enough good things about Adepticon. Hank's in here too, so I'm looking forward to Milwaukee this coming year. It's gonna be a good one. So
yeah.
Are you going to be there?
I'm not, but my son is.
Oh, come on. You should come hang out, totally.
Yeah, I could. Yeah. I most probably won't. I'll still be trying to paint my damn army.
I was going to ask John about his early days in the hobby.
Oh, sure.
Any fun?
I'll try and keep it oddly brief.
Oddly brief, yeah.
So, my mum always described that I always had a fascination with, as she put it, shooty, shooty, bang, bang. So I was always running around with a toy gun of some description.
Right.
And then I went down to a little village that I lived near called Hoo, and it literally was HOO. And they had a little shop in there, and I found Airfix kits. So we're talking 7, 8 years old. So masses there, stupid amounts of glue dribbling down the side of these things, and I loved them. But very, very limited ability to play war games. There was one book that my best friend and I picked up by Bruce Quarry, and it was so complicated. You know, it was all about bounds and this gun fired 4 times in this bit, and you had it was like, oh my heavens. So my mate, and I'm going to drop his name, is Grimy, that's his nickname. Okay. We would build all these tanks, and then we would take them into the garden, and we would shoot them with air guns, which seemed to be a much more fun hobby than Bruce Quarry's book.
Yep.
So carried on with this, and I was of the generation that actually very, very few played with toy soldiers or admitted to playing with toy soldiers.
Right.
So going through high school and that sort of stuff, I reckon half a dozen of us would actually, admit to playing with toy soldiers. No Games Workshop, nothing like that. And I would play against Martin, and we would play, and that's Grimey's real name, and we would have one war game a year, because he lived up in London, I lived down in a little village called St Mary's Hoo in Kent. And it was the highlight of the year. And it was like, oh, okay. And we got a bit older, motorbikes, booze, girls, etc., etc. So it was like even less chance of playing a war game. But I always made these armies. I made Byzantine armies, Celt armies, Boer War armies, you name it, I would do, sticking to World War II. And it was funny. I was getting into a place where, this is just a lonely hobby. He'd moved away. There was nobody else, blah, blah, blah. And I went to work on a farm, and I'll try and keep the farm stories brief as well. And I love working on the farm. And there was this old guy who was my mentor of cattle. And he used to go to this Who library religiously. And I used to gibber on about little toy soldiers and stuff like this, blah, 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 and always fell on deaf ears. None of them were really interested. And one time he came back and said, I've just been down the library, and there's loads of them little toy soldiers you talk about. I was like, what? He said, yeah, there's a whole display down there. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, unusual for me. I was like, I'm going to go and see it. So hopped on my bike, buzzed off down there, and the display wasn't there. And I was like, oh. Yeah. And again, very unusual for me. I popped up to the counter and said, did you have a display of toy soldiers? And this woman said, oh, yes, it's gone now, though. I was like, oh, that's a shame. She said, but my son, it was his. I was like, oh. And of course, I'm looking at her and immediately calculating, going, he's going to be 12, isn't he? That's how old he is. I was 28 at the time. And I was like, I can't be hanging out with 12-year-olds. That's just not a done thing. I'm trying to keep at least my image cleanish. And I was like, and how old is he? And she went, oh, he's 17. What? Oh, okay. I said, look, this is a bit weird, but here's my phone number. If they're interested, because what they were trying to do is start a club. And I said, and if they're interested, give me a call. And I went out, not really expecting anything. And I got home and the phone did ring. And it was this bloke called Steve Hambrook. Right. And I mentioned him before. And he was like, oh, yeah, well, we're into this and that and the other. And of course, he tried to sell it as all of this historical and they were really into it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And then they said, do you know of Salute? And I went, yes, my mate and I go there every year. And it was like, okay, so shall we meet up and go up together? I was like, yeah, no worries at all. So I came round to see them. And of course, they were 17-year-old schoolboys in woolly jumpers and very nice little trousers and things like that. And Grimy and I were wannabe bikers. We were leathered up, bullet belt, camos, German para boots, this as long as hair as I could ever grow, blah, blah, blah. Trying to be little hard boys, failing miserably, but we were trying our hard damnedest. And we went up there and actually they sort of, for some God knows reason, liked me. And went there. And then they started talking about this game called Warhammer. I was like, what? Okay. But I had been to Salute the year before, and I'd seen this beautiful Raoul Partha figure of a skeleton leaning back with 4 war dogs pulling it away. And this guy had put chains on it. And it was just, for me, an iconic pose. It was just beautiful. It had movement while being static. It was just a beautiful, beautiful figure. And then Steve said these words, oh, and you can play with undead skeletons. And I was like, what? Who's that? Oh, it was great. And another guy called Aid, because they handed me the 3rd edition book. So this is the first hardcover. And I'm sure that I'm telling most people get confused. They think that the 2-box edition is the first one. The first edition of Warhammer is a 1 pamphlet A4 piece of paper, folded over and was given away for free from mail order. Then there was 2, which were the 2-box sets with Harry the Hammer on. Yep. And then they had the 3rd edition book, which is the sort of orange covered one. It's also got a Harry the Hammer thing, and it had Warhammer Armies as its 2nd book, which is still, I think, one of the finest books that Games Workshop's ever done. Well, this had just come out. And of course, they show me this book and it's this thick. I'm like, oh, great. Another bloody rule set to argue over. This is going to be awful. And then this bloke called Aid went, you know what's the best thing about that book, John? And I went, no. And he went, flip to the back. And he said, all those rules condensed down into these 2 pages. And I went, I can learn 2 pages.
Excellent.
And I was sold from then on. It was there. And I have to say, I was really, really lucky. Steve Hambrook is most probably, or sadly was, most probably the best GM, games master I have ever come across. That boy could tell a story that you just wanted to play the next bit of it. It was great. He would do these campaigns. He got himself fired from his lawyer job because he would literally spend all the time photocopying all the maps that he was doing. He would come back with reams of paper. But the group that we were together in was just fantastic, and we would play every Thursday, every Saturday. My wife would feed them hot dogs, and just a saint for putting up with us. But Steve was the one who, in many ways, got me into this side of the hobby.
Right.
So how long after that did you end up getting a job at GW? Because you started out as you were like a mailroom troll, right?
Just quickly, I want to call this one out. Cliff says, "Here's a phone number of a man who wants to meet you, son."
The 70s and 80s were a different time.
Yeah, he didn't look too strange. So what happened was we carried on working and that sort of thing. And long story short, I was very lucky in a couple of choices that I made that we were able to retire when I was 33. Whoopee for me. Is by 33 and a half, I was bored out of my tree, because everybody you phoned up and went, "Oh, you want to do something?" They were like, "We're at work, John."
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Chris, my wife, would also be, "Oh God, and he's under my feet again. Oh, for heaven's sake, blah, blah, blah." So I phoned Steve up, and he'd got fired by now.
Yep.
And I said to him, "Can you get any money?" And he went, well, how much? And I went, $4,000. And he went, "Yeah, I can get $4,000. I said, "Okay, we'll open a shop in Lincolnshire." And at the time, Games Workshop didn't have a presence in Lincoln. So we opened this little shop together, and it was called S&J Models and Games, or better known as Gobbo Games. And we just planned on, jogging along and doing that. And what we really planned on doing is we were going to make Lincoln so successful that they would put a Games Workshop in there. And they would obviously come to the two guys who were running this marvelous shop, and they'd make us the manager. Yeah, Naive was my middle name then. So we did, and we made butt tons of money. I mean, way more than we thought we were going to, and it was all great. But nobody warned us about February. And literally, I'm sure Jake will attest to this, is February can be a bit slow. And when you're not ready for it, I mean, there was one day where we did £6.47.
Right.
And I might be off by a couple of pence. But that was a bit of a shock. And there was a chap who was a customer of ours called Mark Cox. And he went off for an interview with Games Workshop because his cousin was Dave Cross, who is still there. Right. Very nice chap. And he went for a job at mail order. And he came back and he went, "Oh, John, you should go there." He said, "You only have to work 3 days a week." And I'm like, "Oh, 3 days a week? Yeah, I can handle 3 days a week. That's all right." Now, they were 14-hour days. But I was thinking, yeah, all right. Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. And I phoned up Games Workshop pretty much on a whim, because I'd said to Steve, "Look, this isn't sustainable for two of us." And poor old Steve's, his face was like, "Oh, John's making me get a job." And it was like, no, I'm going to get the job, Steve. Carry on running the shop. And he's like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." So I phoned up, and I got this bloke who seemed to be totally disinterested. His name was Gordon Davidson. And it was like hard work. And it really was. And then he said these words, and he went, "Well, what do you do now, John?" And I went, "Oh, I run S&J Models and Games out of Lincoln." And it was like, bang. They'd heard of the shop there because we'd actually had Stallard and Mark Hall and somebody else come. Oh, Silver Fox come in and see us visit because our shop did well. We were as close to a Games Workshop as you could be back then because gaming in store wasn't the norm. It was full of crusty-old 60-year-old men, and the sort of figures were crammed in by Airfix and Matchbox and Revell and all of these sort of things. We've got a lot better at hobby shops now with gaming tables and everything. And Gordon was like, oh, okay, well, would you come in for an interview? I was like, yeah, when do you want me? And he said, when can you be there? I was like, tomorrow. And he was like, oh, okay. So I turned up, and this is where I suddenly worked out I didn't have a suit. I actually didn't even really possess a tie. I had sort of a thing that I might have had at school or something like this. So I turned up.
He just showed up looking like Bruce Dickinson off the first Iron Maiden album. His long hair and his leather jacket, chewing bubble gum. Well, I'm here for the interview.
The funny thing is, I didn't drive a car. So yes, I did turn up on my bike. So, of course, there is something about there is I used to have a really scabby old tasseled leather jacket and all this sort of thing from my days trying to be tough. And I turned up there and I get into this building that has got a wonderful receptionist lady called Hope. She's very polite to me and makes me sit down. And I look over to the left and there's a power-dressed man, power-dressed man, power-dressed woman, power-dressed man, me. And of course, I'm thinking, oh, shit, these are all going for interviews. I am well and truly not going to get this job. And my interview was at, well, I don't know, 2 o'clock-ish. 2 o'clock came, went. 2:30 came, went. 3 o'clock came, went. And then someone came in and said, oh, would the reps for Red Star please come this way? Power dress, power dress, power dress, power dress. All went. I'm like, I'm back in with a shot. And I'd been warned that I was going to be interviewed by the world's ugliest man, which is a bit unfair.
Second ugliest man.
Yeah, and a man's name that you will not be able to pronounce. I was like, okay. Anyway, I get sent up, and Gordon Davidson, who definitely has a smashed-in nose, but he's not the ugliest man in the planet. He was there, and a bloke called Ed Spettigue. And the only reason I could pronounce his name is because he told me it. If I'd had to read it, I would absolutely still be going, what? How? What? I have no idea how you get Spettigue from that spelling, but there you go. And they, unbeknownst to me, I am so much older than everybody in that building. They're all in their young 20s and this sort of thing, and I'm a crusty old 34-year-old. So I was viewed as ancient, really old. It was like I wasn't used to that.
Who's that old guy?
Yeah. And they start, and I haven't had an interview in decades. I mean, literally I most probably had an interview when I was 22 or something like that. And all the rest of the time, I just carried on doing the jobs on the farm and having the shop and this sort of stuff. And so I'm desperately trying to impress because I am thinking Workshop is a slick, well-run corporate engine. I really am.
What would give you that? What would give you that thought process?
Well, because actually, from my background, I worked on a farm. I ran a pissant little shop. They were the things. They wouldn't give us a credit limit. You know, they were the company. They had to be enormous.
It's amazing.
You know, and I went there. So I start with this thing, and I'm telling them about my story, which is actually sort of going like this: bump, bump, bump. Oh, I do this. A bit of Women of Iron here. Oh, I've got a mad idea, Chris. Let's open a fish and chip shop, or whatever it was. I literally just haphazard careered all over the place, and was lucky. So I'm trying to put that into a narrative that makes me sound good. And Ed suddenly says this. He's like, you really seem like a man who sets goals, achieves them, then plans out what you want to do next and move forward and do this. And I'm like, I sound great. I'm patting myself on the back and this sort of thing. And then he drops this bombshell on me. He goes, well, Games Workshop's more like a company where we go out to the pub on a Friday, decide what we're going to do, and by Monday we're doing it. And so I'm madly trying to backpedal, going, well, I also consider myself flexible enough to blah, blah, blah. They aren't listening at all.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, they go, can you give a really good bollocking? And before I can answer, Gordon Davidson looks at me and goes, of course he can. He looks like a right bastard. I'm like, well, that's it. I'm done. And he went, can you start on Monday? I was like, okay. So I did. And they put me in to mail order as a picker. I was hopeless. I mean, there were these guys. Richard was as one of them. That guy could pick 4 or 5 orders to my one. I was just rubbish. So I picked for 2 weeks and they put me on checking orders. And I was even worse at that. It was just, I hated it. It was horrible. You had to literally take the figures that had been picked by the pickers and compare them to the catalogue of what might have been ordered by the person phoning mail order. And it was like, is it done? Oh, God, it was horrible. I hated it. And then they went, well, we'll put him in telephones. And I hadn't realized that my first jobs, I'd been in hotel and restaurants, and subtle selling is what you did. And they put me on the telephones with people who phoned up loving toy soldiers with credit cards. And if that is not a recipe for
John
danger,
doubled their sales the first.
Well, it was, and again, they put me in a room full of 19 somethings. They were more worried about, what they were having for lunch than selling. And I would just pick up the phone. I've got nothing really to talk about other than toy soldiers with them. Our life experiences are very different. They're in chinos and nice shirts, and I'm still trying to be a wannabe biker. It was very weird. So I just sold. And Ed was very good. He was like, well, we're going to do this target this month. And we were like, okay. And I just listened. And he would like, right, I want everybody to sell 80 White Dwarf subscriptions. And if you do, you get this. And I want 80 journal subscriptions. And if you do, you get this. And I want 2,000 sale blisters. And if you do, you get this. And those thises would have doubled my month's salary. And of course, as soon as he's gone out, because Ed was very larger than life, and you would, we're all jumping off a cliff. Yes, we'll follow Ed. Yeah. Oh dear, we're all dead. And I then listened to the others, and they're like, oh, well, which one are you going for, Dave?
The journal one, obviously.
Which one? I'm going to do all of them.
Exactly. And then they got to me, and I was just like, all of them.
Yeah, why would you pick?
Exactly. And of course, I did got a lovely chunk of change. But then, of course, again, still, this is within 2.5 months. So I'm still very much the new boy. I'm older. So other than a chap called Lee Ingram, not talked to too much on there because, of course, what I didn't realize is they actually thought I was a spy coming in from some weird company like Hasbro or Mattel or something like this. Oh, they're going to check us out. And it's like, okay, you couldn't be further from the truth. Not anything like that. And what I didn't realize was that mail order was a grooming ground for trade. So, of course, I did this and I was like, cool, going to turn up next week. But no, my name had been passed up to a bloke called Ronnie Renton of, yeah, we think this guy can sell. So I got purloined and over into trade now, where I had to wear a tie. That was a bit of a shock. But again, I was very fortunate that the guy that they'd had before me was a total psychopath. He had destroyed this region by everything that ever Games Workshop is accused of doing, he had done. It was appalling. I mean, I spent, my nickname was Sorry, because that's all I used to say. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. That I won't do that, but I will fix it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I took a region that was doing 5,000 a week to doing 20, 22,000 in a few months by literally saying sorry and fixing stuff and just doing what you should do. And so again, there was a little bit of luck there where they were like, oh, well, this guy must know what he's doing. And it's like, no, not really. But there, and I had a compatriot called Sean McLaughlin, and he was a slick man. He knew his stuff. He was very good. He was very good with rapport. He knew his accounts and that sort of thing. And he was doing 25,000. And I was like, I've got to beat Sean. I've got to beat Sean. Got to beat Sean. But he knew his stuff. The only thing I could do was get new accounts. So Sean used to run about 60 to 70 trade stores a month on his call sheet. And I had about 55. But by the time I beat him, I had 117. I couldn't keep up with calling them all, but I just used to bang away. That's it. And I was again fortunate that a gentleman that they had as my boss, a chap by Simon, he wanted to actually be more of a rep than in the office. And he organized with them and said, you know, look, I'd like to go up and be a road rep. And would you please give the job to John, because he's been running the business anyway. And I was very touched by that. So then I took over the UK trade sales, and we had a very good run at making money. And I was working for Ronnie, who then went off to run Germany. And then he was succeeded by John Paul Brizzigotti, and his name will come back up later. So I worked for him, and the UK did very, very well. And I was most probably going to move into John Paul's job when he went off to be the CEO of Italy, is there. But there was this odd time when I kept seeing other people being dragged into John Paul's office. And one of them was Jonas Faring from Army Painter. And I remember him going in there and thinking to myself, well, you know, when am I going to get talked to? Because these were all guys who ran parts of the trade sales world. So Jonas used to do Denmark and the sort of Scandinavian countries. And they'd had another guy from Germany that had been called in and this sort of thing. And I was thinking, well, you know, when's it my turn to be called? And it didn't happen. I was like, come on, I can't be doing that wonderful that there is no critique here. And then I heard that actually they weren't critiquing anybody. They were asking people if they were interested in going to the USA. I was like, oh, why am I not being asked? I'm the dog's bollocks. I'm excellent, I am. Rah, rah, rah. And then one time I was sitting at my desk, and John Stallard came, and I'm going to use these words, bouncing through the office, because he's a big lad, but he was bouncing. He was in a really good mood, and he was wearing what I would call bumper boots, red baseball boots. And very odd to see John in red baseball boots, but he had them on. And I would just say to him, you know, John, can I have a word? And he went, of course, Jono, come on. And I thought to myself, well, I've got to play it that this is going to get me some attention. So I literally started the conversation off with, you do know you're not going to make any money in America until you send me. And he just looked at me and he went, would you go? And I'm like, this is one of my traits. This does not engage nearly as quickly as this. So I had not talked to my wife or anything about this. And I went, yeah, of course. And he went, all right. And that was the conversation. And yeah, there I am.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's a great old photo.
Yep.
And so I had to go back and say to Chris, well, I've done something. I've sort of applied for a job in America. And she was like, what? I said, yeah. And then said, would we have to move? Yes, dear. She'd never been on a plane.
Right.
I mean, it was that one of you know, you've got to give us some kudos for there. And then about 8 to 10 days later, they flew me out to meet up with Chris Prentice, who was the then CEO. And we chatted, and he said to me, you know, do you think you can make some money here? And I went, yep, absolutely. And I would say 6 to 8 weeks later, Chris has packed up the house and we've moved myself, her, and the 2 kids over and landed. And Blair there, who's in the red shirt, he was one of the trade sales team leads that I inherited. The other was Lonnie Mullins and a Jack called Frank Barish. And there were 3 teams, and we hit the ground running, and we made a buttload of money in the first year. Enough so that if people remember, that was when Pokemon was going on. And Games Workshop had a bit of a wobble with Pokemon because lots of the younger people had gone off to a much easier hobby. And I remember having Kirby come into my office and saying, well, thank you, John. You have done 35% of the world's turnover. But more importantly, Trade Sales USA has done 67% of the profit. So thank you. And it was like, oh, okay. There. They could have given me a bigger reward, but, you know, that's the way it goes. So that is how I ended up in America, by one cocky statement.
I'm just going to say, John, quickly. So just so you know, Harry has joined us in the chat. Harry Heckle.
Oh, hello, Harry.
Blake Schroed as well.
Oh, a long time. I hope you're all right, Blake, because he had a bit of a dodgy heart business.
Yep. Blake said he still hated ties on Mondays.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, mate. Sorry. I enjoyed it.
Excellent.
Hey guys, make sure if you guys are listening, you hit the like and subscribe. There's like over 24 people on here.
Yep. Oh well. Excellent.
Dude, it's so wild. Like when I think back to, I mean, and you guys were with the company longer than I was. Like when I think back to all the crazy stuff that we got up to when I was there, like I remember telling people about the Bits Wagon, and they're like, "What's the Bits Wagon?" And I was like, "I'm like, you don't know what the Bits Wagon is?" Like that was a whole like super cool thing. Like just knowing that you could go and like go to a show and the Bits Wagon to be there, or like you know, having mail order here in the U.S. where we could buy metal by the ounce or by the pound. Like there was just so much fun stuff that we did. Like the company kind of had. I still remember to this day getting a look from who is it, Michelle, who worked for you. Because I was telling a story and I was swearing right as she walks in, and Dirty Steve had me telling a story, and she looked at me like my head was on fire and then was like, he seems to be one of John's guys. I won't say anything. So
yes, I mean, the later times that we allude to, they definitely, I feel, had a jealousy because they believed that we managed with a persona of cult of personality. And they're not wrong. Myself, Ed, few others on there is we definitely had our boys. I remember when Blake, and this was the year 2000, you know, when it was all supposed to go horribly wrong. And I remember him coming up to me and saying, so what do we do? And he caught me flat-footed. And I was like, what do you mean, Blake? And he went, when it goes horribly wrong, where do we all meet? And actually, it was one of my favorite and most touching memories.
You're like in the bits wagon.
We were a group that would fight shoulder to shoulder. And why wouldn't we? If it was going horribly wrong, there were 20 of us that would most probably have stood on, yeah, we need to figure this out. And that I haven't experienced many times in my life, and I am grateful for that.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, part of the reason I think that I've been as successful as I am as a manager for all the companies I've worked for, it's a huge, I've had dozens of managers, dozens of supervisors. I would say there's 2 or 3 that I can count on dependably that have gone from being like a boss and a mentor to being a friend. And you are at the tippy top of that list. And a huge part of the reason that I think I was so successful was some of the lessons I learned from you. One of my favorites of all time is I remember I was new. I think I'd been with the company for maybe 4 or 5 months. So I was with the company for like 3 or 4 months and then got promoted and got my first store. And I was dealing with, I had been with the company at this point for I'd been a manager for maybe a year, and you guys sent me out to Natick, and I was dealing with that whole changeover. And that ended up being permanent because I turned that store around. But at the time, I remember meeting with everybody, and I called you up. Sean was away doing something, and Jirogi wasn't around, and I called you, and I said, I'm having a really hard time. And I said, I have these 2 employees that technically they've both done the same thing, but I don't know how I should treat them. And you were like, okay, so there's equity and there's equality. You don't want to treat them the same. You just want to treat them both fairly. And that was a huge thing for me because it was like, well, I have this one guy that's been with the company for, 2 or 3 years, and he's a great worker. He's full-time, but he was going through a stretch where he'd been late like 7 or 8 times over the course of 2 weeks. And then I had a part-timer who'd been with the company for like 3 or 4 months, and he'd been late like 3 or 4 times. And you were like, but those aren't the same. You have a full-timer who has all this tread on the tire, who's been with you for a long time, and you introduced the twat point system to me when I was like, that makes sense. And so I took that with me. Every company I worked for, I took that with me. So when I would sit down, people would be like, well, you didn't do the same thing to him. And I'd be like, that's not this. You're not the same employee. Like the responsibilities are different. Like your track record is different. The experiences you have are different. So, but again, a huge part of that was just I will say, I will speak for every retail manager that we had, me, Pete Underwood, Adam Pratt, Jeff Wallach, like all of us, any one of us would have taken a bullet for you. Any one of us would have done it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Now,
which would have been tough because there were a lot of people coming after John with
yeah, I mean,
that's the only reason
we were just going to push. We were just going to push.
Fields.
I was just going to push Scott Walsh in the way. Like
okay.
Well, it would have bounced off him anyway. So it would have been okay. It is interesting you bring up the twat point system, is because if Harry is still on here, he could tell a very amusing story of not knowing what that word meant and telling it to when he went off to work for a new group that was mostly middle-aged ladies.
Right.
And he told the whole story of you build up these points, blah, 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 blah,
but
blah,
it's the British version of the word.
Exactly. And these ladies did know what that word meant. And they were a tad shocked.
When I tell it to people who aren't British, I usually just say brownie points. Like, yes. I'm like, you've accrued a bunch of brownie points. Like you have built up this through your track record and what you're doing and all that stuff. But it's such a great way to it's a really smart way to like take what is a complex issue and simplify it. You're like, well, the brownie points are that's all the goodwill that you have earned through your efforts at this company versus somebody who's new. They haven't earned that yet. Like they don't have any kind of track record. So,
but they still get a few. We'd always give people, and I mean, it was the thing. I remember having this when we were going through what we term the head and the hearts, and I'm sure Dave remembers this, is Dave and myself would be regarded as hearts. We were passionate over Games Workshop and the toy soldiers and almost ahead of the work.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I was introduced to somebody outside the thing and they'd ask me what I'd do, I would always say this: I play with little toy soldiers. That is such a lie from what I did. I push bits of paper around. I am numbers. Trade sales is not glamorous. I don't have the pedigree of, oh, he's creative, he does this, he does that. No, we were trade sales people. We sold stuff. We did paperwork. We did numbers. I mean, the poor gentleman from New Zealand I remember 3-hour planning sessions repeatedly while the planning thing. My whole February was taken up doing next year's fiscal plan and personnel. And when you're a dyslexic monkey like I am, that was a nightmare. Absolute having to spell. Oh, thank God for modern computers that will actually say, "Are you trying to say the word and, John? Why have you got 18 Z's in there?" Numbers, I'm a lot better with, but it was that sort of thing. And then they tried bringing in people that they would view as professionals. And you go, yep. And most of them would be heads. They have got a knowledge, their heads are there. But of course, what they never did was try to ever understand us. And I remember when we had, and I've forgotten his name now, which is a shame, but we had a COO, a position that I'd never come across before. And this gentleman came in and he was trying to change everything. And definitely rubbing myself and Ed and a few others up the wrong way. And we used to moan and do this sort of thing. And often behind the scenes, it will be like, well, who's going to put him right? And it was my turn this time. And I remember walking into his office and, starting with a conversation, trying to get him to, is he going to be receptive to hear anything? Because he might have had a bad day, whatever it was. And he wasn't. He was okay. And I said, I think his name was Chris, but I could be wrong. We'll call him Chris for now. And I said to him, you know what, Chris? You really impressed me in the interview. And he got all cocky and like, you know what would really impress me now is if you learned what the hell we do. Yeah. And to his credit, one of the few heads that went, thanks, John, and did. He learned what we did. And it made his then head knowledge so much more useful to us because, of course, we weren't stupid. But there were things that we definitely didn't know. And like everybody, you sort of rail against when somebody's just coming in and trying to change it without and going, and he would listen when we go, we have tried that 3 times. Oh, have we? Well, we won't do that then. What about this? Oh, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. And you progressed and you made it, and it was that sort of thing. And it was, I think that's where a lot of people got marginalized, sidelined, felt not listened to, whatever it happened to be. I remember a gentleman called Martin Perkins, and he was one of the times he's saying, the most important thing for me is being listened to. He said, doesn't mean that my idea has to be used, but if I feel that I don't get listened to, what's the point? And I'm not the best listener, but I do try to go, well, go on then. And of course, half the time, especially when it's something that you've already tried 4 times, yeah, that's going to fail.
No. It's that, yeah. So you hit that point of like, is it that I'm experienced or is it that I'm jaded? Like, because it so happens now, like as a Gamma member, right? So because I now have my own store, I go to so many things where I'll meet with people at Gamma and they're like, oh, I have a new store and I'm going to do this. And what do you think? And I'll kind of bite my tongue. And then I'll be like, you know what? I'm like, do you want me to just listen to your ideas or do you want me to give you like legitimate feedback? and they'll go, I like real feedback. And I'm like, you shouldn't do that. And they're like, really? They're like, how do you know? I was like, my store's been over 7.5 years, but I've worked in the industry for over 2 decades. Like, I have friends at stores. I have other, like, that doesn't work. That is not the right idea for you, what you're trying to do.
Yep.
Like, I'm like, if you want, I will give you all the advice you want. Again, when we opened, you were so gracious to Adam and I, and we had a lot of friends across the industry that were really helpful. And I've always said, I will always try to pay that forward.
Yep.
And wherever I can use my skills and experience to help somebody else, I'm happy to do so. But we were talking the other day, there was a handful of us, a handful of store managers, owners, we're all kind of chatting about some stuff. And that head versus heart thing you're talking about, that's kind of rampant across. I'm sure it's in other industries too. It's just much more noticeable in our industry because it's so low to the ground. Like even the big companies like, Hasbro and Games Workshop and Asmodee, like we still all know a ton of those guys. So there's so many people in our industry that I tell people like they belong in 2 categories. It's either I'm a passionate guy, like I love, or girl, and I love this project. I love this hobby. I love what we do, but I don't have any of the skills to do it. Or it's people who are like, I have all these skills and training and corporate America sort of mindset, but I don't really understand or have a passion for any of the hobby. And I'm like, you can't be in either column. You need to have, the only way you could be is if we were going to open a business and I was the business guy and John was the hobby guy and we worked together to like Reese's Pieces, that makes sense. But you can't have one person who's like, I'm only in this column. It's like, well, then your store's going to fall apart. Or you're like, I know what I should get. Then you're going to run out of money because like you don't know what you're doing. You got to have that sort of cross where you kind of meet on that chart and you're like, oh, okay, I can use my passion and my experiences and my skill set to make this work. The fact that happens at some of the corporate like level stuff that we have to deal with, it blows me away, but it makes sense, right? Because Games Workshop was started by 2 guys in their garage making armies for their friends. Like, I get it. Like at one point, everybody was a small business. So,
Well, it would be interesting to see. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to, if you had like a last thing for this, that's good. But Blake Schroeder sent me through a few photos that I thought would.
Oh, geez.
I'll be interested to see what happens with Hasbro and D&D.
Yeah.
Because with the new CEO of Hasbro, he definitely
Chris Cox.
Yes, he seems to have come from a micro purchase computer world. And from the little bit I have been looking seems to be overlaying this model on to what has traditionally been a hard book purchase driven thing. And, it'll be interesting there to see whether the community embraces his ideas or wants it the way that they want it because that's how it has been.
Yeah.
For my take on him, both as a hobbyist and as a store owner, he's got 2 strikes.
Okay.
He's got 1 more. He's got 2 on him. So
I'll give you the last strike later on, but it'll be funny.
No, there isn't a third
strike. Cool. Okay, let's have a quick look at these photos. So these are Blake sent these through. These are the sales floor. So here we go.
Oh, crikey. Jeez.
Wow, is that like an Apple IIc on his desk?
It might be something as powerful as that.
Gamble.
Yep, Anthony Gamble.
Yep. Oh my God, that's Rob Villeneuve with hair.
Yep.
Wow.
And it is, I think that's Mike Nankervis. He gave me some fantastic brass dice that weighed about 1.5 pounds each. And when he gave them to me, he was leaving, and he was like, "These will be for you to throw at people not doing their job." And it was like, these damn things will kill someone.
Yeah, you'll kill somebody. Malef says that my man's name is Sales there, the guy with the mustache.
I just noticed on so all of these everything written on the back here is a that's a store.
Yep. And the columns to the right,
yep,
where we had things that they'd have. Do they stock 40K? Do they stock Warhammer? Do they do this? Do they do that? Do they have in-store games?
Strange. So it's probably what? It's probably 40K, or it would have been Warhammer 40K, Special Strange paint.
Most probably not for that. Then it would have been more in-store gaming, because when this started, we were fighting shops to put in tables.
Right.
Is most of them would not have a table because it was lost revenue. And again, it's that oddness of now you go, if you walked into a game store and it didn't have a table, you'd scratch your head a little bit going, well, what's going on? But back then, absolutely wasn't. And even worse in the UK, because the UK stores were small.
Yeah, they're tiny.
Yep.
Yeah.
I noticed on here, I can see here, most people won't be able to see that, but the Showcase 1, Showcase 2, Showcase 3.
That's
Mike
right.
Clark up in near Philly.
And he's still got 1 and 2, though I think 1's actually moved locations now.
Yeah.
So Blake says ties on Monday. So Monday you had to wear ties and the rest of the week was casual week?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, there's Bob Mahoney, sadly passed away.
Man, look at this room.
Guy in the bottom right-hand corner. Oh, my God, that's John Wolfe.
Yep.
And the guy in the bottom right-hand corner, that's Danny Perez.
All right. Yeah. Yep.
Scott says these guys look like they're waiting for the Glengarry leads.
Yeah.
Yep.
John is one of my all-time favorite people. He is one of the world's good people. If the world was full of him, we'd be a lot more weird. But there's Blake there.
Yep, Blake there.
Yeah. I think that's Zimmerman at the back there.
Is that Brad Morin there?
Matt Bull says
that might be Brad Morin. Yep.
Matt Bull says failure is worse than death.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, those were all my bright ideas when I came over there. I used to love my signs.
Yeah. Excellent stuff there. So yeah, Brad Morin is currently living. Well, I say currently, he's been living in Australia for like 20 years.
Yep.
And runs the Cast Dice podcast. So
and I think that's Russell Swanson to his right behind him. No, not there. That one there. I think.
That is so funny.
And that's Paul Whittick behind Blake Schroed.
Oh, here?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. There we go.
I think when I got hired, I went down to visit the bunker, and I was hanging out with Brooksy, and he was telling me that Joe Neat had come over from trade because he was in trade. And then I think Matt was in trade at the time. And I think Jeff Smith was in trade at the time. Mm-hmm. And even Shawno, like we got Shawno because Shawno wanted to get promoted and you had to have store experience as well. And that's why he got put out as a district manager. But
and I mean, he ran a very, very successful trade account in Seattle way, Washington State, maybe Oregon. I can't remember now. But yeah, he came from his store to us.
all the guys who worked for you, they're like, pick up the phone. Matt Bowles, John Matthews walking across the tops of the desks yelling, make me some money.
Yeah, there was definitely that.
Okay. I think what we need to do now is we talked a lot about
phone calls, make John some money. You got it.
Let's move on to
hey, is this Danger Planet? How many copies of Space Hulk do you want?
Let's move on to Battlefront.
Oh, right. Yes.
It's like 15 minutes of Battlefront.
So what happened was Heads and Hearts and stuff like that. And
hey, boss, can I jump in? I'll tell everybody the event because John is trying to be political and I don't give a shit. So I will tell everybody.
No. Jake, no.
It's the best part because
we brought John on to tell the stories.
Oh, fine. He's not going to tell that part.
No, I'm not.
He won't. And there's a reason why he won't. So,
I'm definitely out of step. And in there, and also there is this other bit is I wanted to be the CEO of the USA. And
we all wanted that.
And I'm not to this day, I'm not sure whether I could have actually done it. It's a big job. I'd have given it my best shot, but maybe I wouldn't have been able to do it as well as it needed to be done. But that's by the by. So part of me was going, no, I'm not going to there. I'm almost at the ceiling of where I think they're going to allow me to be. One of my failings is I definitely cannot be serious for long. So in meetings when so for one of the times, I'll give you an example, Kirby comes in and he is ultra serious. So again, maybe I should just point out, my position was 2 positions lower than Kirby, except for those are vast.
Right.
So you had Kirby, what we termed heads of government, i.e. CEOs of countries, me.
John Stallard.
Yeah. But this isn't here, it's here. And then Kirby's here. So when Kirby came to see you, you behaved. And, you know, and we're there, and I am paying attention, except for, and I don't know why, but he brought juice boxes. You know, those little boxes that have drink in?
And juice in them. Yeah.
And you poke them with a straw? So we're all doing this, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to drink mine. So poke the straw in, have a couple of slurps, all good. Then I decide that a good idea would be to blow into it. So I blow into it and then take it out, and there is a stream of juice, which I found hilarious. Tom did not find that hilarious. So I imagine my chances of John is the serious man to be able to go into the upper echelons were tainted by a juice box as well. Other things. So I got to this stage where actually I was a bit disheartened and a bit disgruntled. I was even looking at weird businesses of my former life. Chris and myself were talking about getting a Red Lobster franchise, this sort of thing of anything to do. And I got
you guys hear where Matthews is? What? He's got his own Red Lobster right in Glen Burnie.
Exactly.
We'd all be like, what are you talking about?
And then I got a phone call. And it was a gentleman called John Paul Brizzigotti that we've mentioned before. Yeah. And he just said one thing to me. He said, you do know you have options. And I went, yeah, I know. And again, I was not even thinking this. It was like,
you're like, I'm thinking about making cheddar Bay biscuits, like on a full-time basis.
That's exactly what I said to him is, yeah, I'm thinking about a Red Lobster and blah, 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 blah. And he said, no, I mean, come work for me. And what he didn't know is I'd always wanted to go and live in New Zealand. It was just one of those things that I'd said to Chris many times is, I wish we could move there. I'd love to go and work live in New Zealand. Oh, it'd be lovely. It'd be great. Blah, blah, blah. And of course they were in New Zealand. So they flew me down, interviewed, blah, blah, blah there. And I met this big guy called Pete Simonovich. And I definitely heard about him from John Paul. When you're told that you're being interviewed by the 7th richest man in a country, there is a little bit of, oh shit, okay, he's a serious man. And I got interviewed for the second time.
And you were like, JP, listen, when I meet with Paul, there can't be any juice boxes. My kryptonite, if I'm going to be serious.
Juice boxes. And we were at Las Vegas and went out for a meal. And for some reason, John Paul scampered off. And I know now it was so Pete could have time with me to sum me up. And he said this. He just went, so I hear you're a bit of a gun nut. I'm like, what an odd thing to say. I said, well, no. He said, don't worry, I've got 33. And I was in. And that was it. That was my interview, was that I knew how to shoot a gun and had a few weapons, and Pete loves his firearms. I mean, he's a very good shot. He's very sensible. I mean, we always used to joke, if the zombie apocalypse happened when we were in New Zealand, we're off to Pete. except for not one of us could bust into his compound thing. I mean, the damn thing is like a small room with a safe door. You could drive a tank at that thing and not get in. You'd have to, con Pete into giving you the combo and then nicking the guns. So did this, handed in my notice there. I gave, and this is the bit is, I suppose it rankles a bit, is under my contract with Chris Prentice, I was supposed to give 3 months worth of notice. Fine for upper management, that's no problem at all. So I did 13 weeks and gave it there. And the boss that we worked for then said, well, you can leave right now. Now, it is funny that you sort of get a bit of inkling before. And there were 2 very, very capable guys at workshop in there. One of them is my favorite ginger, Go-Go, Chris Gollinghurst. And he could definitely put me through a wall, no problem at all. And the other, I am terribly sorry, I've forgotten his name, but he was the man who did all the shop fits for the retail things.
John.
Awesome guy.
Yeah.
But again, very, very capable on the other side. So I went to see him first and said, you may be being asked to escort me out of the building. And I shouldn't swear, but I'm going to. He was like, fuck that.
No.
And before I got halfway down the hall, he was in his F-150 driving away. As in, no way am I escorting Matthews off the property. No way. He just went. So I went and saw Go-Go, and he was like, no, don't be stupid. He said, I'm not doing that.
Yep.
I was like, oh, and very touched with that. Very, very touched on the, okay, then, because the boss we had there, yeah, that's the difference is I could have definitely put him through a wall with no problem whatsoever. So went and did it, and he was like, you're going to have to leave now. I'm like, okay. And left it like that as, are you going to... And he was like, well, you'll just take care of it, won't you, Don? I was like, good. So the head of HR came and gave me the whole spiel of, oh, we have to do this and that. And I was like, no.
No, we don't.
What? I said, no. I said, no, I am not one of the guys who's going to send a snotty email to everybody. I will just do it here, there. I mean, I'd already moved all my stuff out that I needed to take and everything like that. So went off. And then, as Jake said, 2 days later, I'm at Origins working for Battlefront. Yeah. And for there, so my job there was, I was a very grandiose title of the global general manager, which meant I managed generally globally. Because we were a small company, and it was actually very much like going back to workshop early on. There were 3 of us that would get together and decide stuff. It was great. And then we go off and see the CEO, the CFO, and he would tell us whether we had enough money to do it or not. And luckily, with Pete being well off, we always had money to do stuff. So we did this, and it was charming. It was going through there. But again, like everything, we became a real business. And with that I was back to pushing paper around and doing planning and that sort of thing. And I enjoy all of that, and it is fun. But again, it was, well, you get less time with toy soldiers. You have more time with staff, and you have to deal with this. And there were many other things, like opening a brand new facility in Malaysia, finding a manager that would move. Luckily, Jeff Brooks, he would move from America to New Zealand over to Malaysia. And, you've got to give the man kudos for that. That's a brave move. Myself, Gordon from Mail Order, and a black bloke called Matt Sully, we literally, the 3 of us, put together the UK warehouse and sales office in a week. And a silly story there of Matt and I are very capable DIY people. Gordon, bit clumsier. Very, very bright boy, but you shouldn't give him a hammer.
Right.
So Matt and I are dealing with the racking that is steel wired compressed cabling. So the way you do that is, if you don't have bolt cutters or something like that, you come in from the side, you find an edge and you hit it with a hammer and it will make the wire ping. Matt and I are doing this and we're moving them when we suddenly hear a scream, a howling pitch, because Gordon had seen us do it and thought he could do it. And he went over, stood in front of it, hit it. The racking explodes. He's wearing sandals. And you know how racking has the bar and then the bit that slips into the racking?
Yeah, the teeth.
One of those came out and literally, this is the top of his foot, takes a massive, great chunk of skin, everything out there. So much so that when I looked at it before the blood started, I could see all the red, the white sinewy tendons and everything in there. Immediately did this to him over his eyes so he couldn't see it, because I didn't want him going into shock. So we wrapped it and Matt took him off to hospital. And it was there. And Gordon actually never saw his foot. But it was hell of an
crazy.
And the funny thing is, he was back to work 2 days later and we still got the office done on time.
Yeah.
So it was those sort of really nice times. And it was in a period where wargaming was exploding. You know, I was telling you when I was young, and it was one. You know, there was just Airfix, and you played a bit of World War II, or there was some really crusty old men who played Napoleonics, but with no imagination. It was just literally, no, they moved here. And you go, yeah, but I don't want to go there. They lost. I want to go here. Oh, you can't do that. I hated it. And then now you're almost at a loss for choice. You know, you can go out and find any sort of wargaming you want to do. I mean, it is absolutely the golden age. It's, you know, I'd love to be younger now. Just literally, oh, I'll try this, I'll try that, I'll try this, and try this.
Yeah, but now that you're older, now you have the disposable income to try all those things. When you're younger, you don't have the disposable income.
And this, again, is going to pee off an awful lot of people that hear it. Because of the position that I was in, I was on the samples list. This always gets Amos. So I got all the new toys sent to me when they were cast. Then I got them when they were packaged. And sometimes I would get a third set. So, I mean, I have 42 cases of painted toy soldiers that I've collected through the years, and they are all painted, and the cases are the Games Workshop ones, and I'm sure there are people's collections that are way better than mine. But the difference is the price I paid for them. and that is terrible. So now, actually, when I come out of it, when I see like this Games Day, no, not Games Day, the Warhammer Day Sorcerer.
Yeah.
I quite liked it. I was like, cool, I'm going to get that. $38. I can afford $38, no problem at all. I am not used to paying $38 for a toy soldier, ever.
Right.
So I go back to being a small teenage boy going, oh, it's so expensive. Which it
You just gotta get a part-time job at one of the Warhammer stores, and then just use your discount.
That's how we did it. Yep.
As my line. But you'll go and buy a tractor for the back garden, John. Not even think of it.
No.
Why do I need a tractor? Because I might move some soil every now and then. I did it but you won't pay $38 for a figure.
I would love to hear John selling this to his wife. Like, honey, listen, hear me out. So I can either buy a tractor or I could buy a whole pile of toy soldiers.
Yep. Yeah, no, Chris is very good.
Oh, we lost him.
He froze.
No.
Oh no. Oh man.
There we go.
All right. Is he still frozen? Can you ping him? All right, here, I'll ping him. Do you want to show off some minis or some more photos?
Yep. So I'll drop him out of the. Oh no, he's
Sorry.
back.
Oh, there we go.
No, she does a very good job of tuning me out when she doesn't want to listen, mainly to my idiotic justifications of why I should buy something. I tried selling her once when they had semi-automatic paintball guns that I needed two because I had two hands.
Right. For sure.
She didn't fall for that at all.
Fantastic. I would have gone with the well, if one of them breaks down, you're going to need the other one to follow up. Otherwise, you've wasted the entire day, right?
It's a spare.
Yeah, you're brighter than I am.
That's been said.
It's true.
By you. But
so I did lots of things with Battlefront.
Yep.
Did this, and very proud of my time there. I spent longer at Battlefront than I did at Games Workshop. I was with them for 16 years, I think.
Right.
And I was with Games Workshop for 11. And then...
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that you did while you were there was hire me.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely.
So when I left Games Workshop and when that became known amongst the Games Workshop crowd, I was there without a job. Christmas was approaching. I had a mortgage and I had my first baby daughter on the way, and I get a call from John saying, "Hey Dave, how are things going?" And I said, "Well, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm worried." And he goes, "Okay, well, how's your knowledge of history?" And I said, "Well, it's pretty good. I'm great with breadth. I'm not so great with depth. I'm good with depth in a couple of areas, but I know a lot of things. Throw a date at me, I'll tell you a battle that happened somewhere around there." And he was like, "Okay, cool. I might have something for you. I'll get back to you after Christmas." And so I was like, "What could it be? What skills is he looking at? How is this going to be applied? Are they starting a magazine? I mean, there's already like War Games Illustrated out there. Why would they start another magazine? That doesn't. I'm confused." But anyway, I was telling John before the show my understanding of after Christmas, when I'm there unemployed, worried about the economic future of my family. My after Christmas is December 26th. John was working for a New Zealand company that takes 2 weeks off after Christmas.
Yeah, we go to the beach.
And so it was like I think it was like January 18th when he told me.
Well, I apologize for that, Dave. It wasn't intentional. Yes, it was. Hook, line, and sinker. Get him for a $5 or less.
And then it turned out that they had bought War Games Illustrated. So it was like, "Hey, Dave, we want you to work on a magazine about historical toy soldiers." And I was like, "Sure, sign me up. I'm in."
And that again shows you one of those things of the insider bits that we all talk to one another.
Yep.
Us buying War Games Illustrated was John Stallard's idea.
Okay.
Yeah. He was the man who came forward and said, "Look, it's going to be up for sale. Why don't you take it?" So we did.
Yep.
And that sort of cooperation does happen inside the toy industry, the toy soldier industry. It is nice that John wasn't ready for it then. Now maybe if it came up now, totally different kettle of fish, but back then John had only just started up with Paul.
Yeah.
I don't think he even had. Oh no, he may have done the Romans and Celts, and that was their line. 2 kits.
2 boxes, yeah.
Yeah, and you look at it and go, wow. So way before bolt action or anything like that.
Yeah. Just quickly, I'm going to spotted something that Scott Radham said. He said, John, you've convinced your wife to move across the world at least twice. I don't think a $38 mini should be a challenge. Closing, brother.
No, she would be fine with that. It is my pettiness of going there. I will still pick the miniature up in there, but it was the sticker shock of that, and also going in and having to buy bases. I remember when it was Essential Plastics were for free. And I think his name was Richard Pomeroy. I remember him going up to the mail order counter, which is how we used to buy metal.
Yep.
And he had a champion, a standard bearer, and a musician. And then 17 plastic halberdiers and the bases. And I think they came with shields back then. And he had them in a pile here. And Ted Williams going, well, what's that? And Richard trying to pull. Well, they're for free, aren't they? Because they're essential plastic.
Essential plastics.
Yeah, that's the whole unit. I only pay for the metal.
Ted made him pay, but you know that idea of you're already getting it. And I mean, it's hard to understand, but we pay 10 or 15 pounds for a kilo of lead.
Yeah.
2.2 pounds worth.
Yeah, I was when I was moving stuff around the other day, I still have a Ziploc bag. I'll see if I can find it. It's right here.
Oh dear.
I mean, we actually had a code when we were hiring people.
Yeah.
And I'd interview a lot of people. And when they came in, you know, some had traveled some distance and that sort of thing. And it was, oh, okay, are they going to get the job or not? And there was a gentleman there that you had the picture of, Dan Spreitzer. He was for quite some time my second in command type thing. And I would just literally do this. And that meant you were getting a kilo of lead, and that meant half a kilo. And if you're getting half a kilo, it's because I didn't really rate you.
Nice. Sorry, Alan Borthwick says, "Yep, New Zealand shuts down for Christmas. I'm finished on December 20th this year and not back for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yep.
It surprised a US company that bought part of Weta and started back on January 1st and wondered where their New Zealand staff were."
Yep.
So I got a metal noise marine.
Oh my goodness.
The old Space Marine captain.
Yep.
I've got a bunch of the maidens off the old Dark Eldar. The Dark Eldar pleasure barge thing.
Yep.
Chris Fitzpatrick's figures.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite.
That's the Vindicare
sculptor.
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then check this out.
What is it?
It's one of the original Imperial Guardsmen.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
He is so tiny. It's unbelievable how tiny he is. But yeah, like all this stuff, this would have cost what, 80 cents?
Yep.
Like, it's nuts. I remember the biggest sticker shock I got was after I left the company and after all the guys that I knew had left. So, Pete Underwood, Adam Pratt, once everybody was gone, I went into a store to buy some stuff. And I was like, I don't know anybody here. I don't know anybody in any of the local stores. And I bought a Rhino and some Space Marines. And I was like, this is more than I spent for my entire Bretonian. It was crazy.
Yep. So,
yep. It is.
Okay. Well, we have reached 8:44.
Oh, crikey.
It is.
John, can you hang out for a minute? What we'll do now is we'll look at some photos from our community of some of the people have painted.
Yeah, this is now 40 minutes after my bedtime. I'm old and retired.
This is true, you are. But
he's got to get to bed early so he doesn't get up for work tomorrow.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, as Jake said, these are minis from our Facebook community. So the Build Paint Play community Facebook group. Make sure if you aren't a member there, head along and join. Click join.
A bunch of oarsmen painted by Alan Borthwick.
Yeah, these are from these are like gondoliers from Carnivale
I love the red.
Combat.
Very nice.
Yeah, they do look cool.
Very nice.
The guy on the right looks like one of Santa's helpers.
Yeah, with that hat. Yep. But I love the that line, the stripe down the side of the pants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
the
nice.
wood works really nice as well.
And Josh says they're going to give you a paddling.
And how?
Excellent. But no, they look very cool, Alan. Nice one. Next up,
Oh,
Amos painted up these Borg.
There's some Gale Force 9 stuff.
Yep.
yeah, from away teams.
Yep. No, that's a great game.
Yeah, that I played it in concept, but I'd gone before it got released.
Right.
It's good. The miniatures are weird. They're not cartoony, but they all have like the oversized heads, so you can see like the detail and figure out who the character is.
Yeah,
They're
it was the idea. Gordon Davidson came up with it, and actually, him, myself, and possibly JP, we wanted the heads bigger.
Right.
Because it was definitely supposed to be about the head, almost, like bobbleheads.
Right.
Not that big, but so you were absolutely, I know who this is.
Yep. A little bit more chibi, like that could have worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, these look great, Amos. Nice one. Very cool. Chris Gorka. Chris painted up a bunch of Skaven, a bunch of the new Skaven war machines.
The weapon teams, yeah, these are great.
Teams. Yeah, which look really cool.
I love the shoddy wheelbarrow full of tanks on the left.
Yeah, it's great. I do love it. But Skaven are perfect for Chris's painting style. A lot of desaturated tones and then that bright copper warpstone. Looking cool there, Chris. Another war machine there.
Those are great.
Looking really nice.
I do like that his Skaven have matching uniforms.
Right.
As they should.
Yep. They've all got the red tunics, the black hoods.
Yeah.
Just because they're rats doesn't mean they can't be stylish.
Yeah.
Beautiful work there, Chris. And Chris has also just finished off his Land Raider.
Yeah, that's nice.
Still one of my favorite kits. Jess Goodwin's the man.
Yeah,
absolutely. 2000, this was released.
It's still, to this day, it's still one of the best kits GW has ever done.
Yeah.
I remember having a falling out with the studio over that when they brought out the Chaos Land Raider. One of the Germans or somebody there asked, why do the tracks still have the Imperial Eagle on it?
Right.
Because they do.
Yep.
And of course, all the guys that are listening to the studio, we all leapt on that. Yeah, it should have a chaos symbol. Rah, 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 rah. And it was Andy Chambers, God love him, who made an absolute balls up of trying to explain it. Because the actual answer was they hadn't thought of it.
Yeah.
Nobody had thought of it at all. It's like the castle. Remember the old big plastic castle?
Yeah.
That doesn't have any arrow slits on it.
Right.
And when I was on one of my trips to the UK, they showed me the 3-up because that's one of the few that was still done on a 3-up. And I walked in there and I looked at the castle and I was like, there's something wrong about that castle. I don't know what it is. And it suddenly came to me, no arrow slits. And it was Robin Jews who I was talking to, who was the head of the studio at the time. And I said to him, why aren't there any arrow slits, Robin? And his face was a picture. Because unlike Andy, he just went, oh my God, we've forgotten them.
It would have been the best if he's like, I was looking, I thought there was something wrong, and I couldn't figure out what it is.
Yeah. And I was the one who said to them, I said, tell you what you do. You make a bunch of metal arrow slits and you sell them in a blister so you can customize your own castle.
Yep.
why it happened. But it was literally this. And Andy should have just said, "Oh, sugar, we forgot," because that's all it was. Is this is a plastic kit, and what you'd have had to have done is cut off each one of those things and replace it with a chaos symbol. Now, us as modelers, we'd have done that. Absolutely would have done it. Does it matter? Hell no.
I just would have said at the end of the day, it's an STC pattern vehicle, and part of the STC pattern is every 13 links is an eagle. I was like, the chaos ones look like that too. If they want to like take it off or mark it up or whatever, defile the symbol, that's up to them. It's the same Land Raider. Like
this was that thing of heads over hearts.
Yeah,
we'd suddenly got it of, oh, this should be, oh, this isn't right. And it just derailed the whole meeting. Absolutely ridiculous.
Amazing.
Moving right along.
Great.
We talked about Chris Kemmig's Blade Champion last week. So this is the finished piece. It does look.
He looks awesome. Great job with the base too. There's so much going on here.
Yep.
That is very nice.
Does look fantastic. And there you go. On the base there's one of those eagles carved off the Land Raider tracks.
Nice.
Interesting. But beautiful work there, Chris.
I like this. I like the swords. The swords look super cool.
Yeah, they do. Nice work. Dave Hummel is starting on his second faux hawk.
He needs to work on that gun a bit. That he hasn't done any highlighting there at all.
Still in the build stage, Sean. But no, this is the basically the Thunderhawk / Stormbird.
That is freaking awesome.
Dave is building from one of the.
It's one of the Clone Wars like landers.
Yeah.
So that's a Star Wars toy that he is converting into a Thunderhawk.
Yeah. That is awesome.
They're looking good. Dave Powell's. So Dave Powell's painted up. This is from the recent Bombshell Minis Mordheim adjacent Kickstarter.
Mordberg.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely beautiful model, and Dave's done a fantastic job there.
I really like the subtle oxidization on the fleur-de-lis on the shield is great.
Yeah, that is really good.
I love the like the stippled texture on the breastplate.
Yep.
It's seen some action. It hasn't taken any big blows, but it's seen some action.
It's a little scratched up.
Yep. But yeah, looks fantastic. Nice work, Dave. And as Amos said, yeah, the texture on the robes is great too. Yeah, beautiful stuff. Dave knows what he's doing when it comes to wielding a paintbrush. Speaking of somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to wielding a paintbrush, another Land Raider here. And Scott, you can be happy about this. It's got the last cannon in front of the doors.
Dude, this thing takes me back. This is like one of the first kits I ever got from mail order, like the original one that was like this.
Sure.
Original.
This one's the
This is the Heresy
one. But yeah, this is Sulin Lo from
nice.
Taiwan.
The heat damage on all the last cannon barrels is great.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely beautiful. And second shot to show that there's lots of substantial damage, and there's a lot of micro damage there as well.
Yeah.
I think Sulin's done an awesome job. It's not too much damage, not too much weathering.
Yeah, it's not over the top. It's looked very nice.
Yeah.
This is what a Land Raider that would look like after having served for several thousand years. So you're like, you can't really do any damage to it. You can just nick up the paint job.
Yep. There's a lot of that stuff that just won't buff out.
Yeah.
But beautiful work, Sulin.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Jeff Smith painting up some
I
more.
taught this man almost everything he knows with painting.
Awesome. That's cool. So yeah, this is Jeff's painting some more of the Dungeon Saga stuff. So there's a commission that he's been working on. Very cool. Sorry, I just noticed Matt Bowles mentioned 3 Land Raiders in a box. I probably shouldn't have called it out. But yeah. All right, nice stuff there, Jeff. That looks great. And here's a character, I'm guessing, from the Abyssal Dwarves.
Very nice.
Looks great. Excellent work there.
It's just an off-brand Chaos Dwarf. You can tell by the giant hat.
It's amazing the new Blood Bowl Chaos Dwarves, their hats are a little bit more this style, which is cool. But yeah, nice work, Jeff.
Yeah, you don't want Jeff playing Chaos Dwarves in Blood Bowl. He is friggin' lethal.
Josh Potter painted up this elemental. It looks very cool, and
It's nice.
he did talk about going for normally if people are going to do crystals, you'll probably see blues or greens or like a magenta sort of.
Yeah, he said he wanted to do something different, so
Yeah, that's nice.
I like it.
It'll look very cool. Then, nice work, Josh. And yeah, as Jez says, he's a beast. Absolutely, looks great. Kelly Rowe, was super excited. Painted up Angel over the last week, and then got to put his favorite X-Men team together.
Can you name these guys, Dave?
Okay, so from right to left, you've got Jean Grey, Beast,
Yep.
Professor X.
Yep.
You got Angel at the back.
Yep.
You've got Cyclops at the front,
Yep.
and then you got Frozone.
No.
I was so close.
You who is it? You know who it is. It's not Frozone.
I don't know the name of that character.
It's Iceman.
Iceman. Okay.
Frozone is from The Incredibles, from the Disney movie. Also super cool. But yeah, so this is Kelly. This is Kelly's take on the original X-Men.
Okay.
So the original X-Men are Angel, Iceman, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Beast.
Cool.
So he did them all in they're in their newer costumes, but that's the original lineup of the X-Men.
Yeah. Again, Gordon Davidson is a fanatic with this and a memory recall that is scarily, but he will always tell you this is the group.
Yep.
Is because they started this way, and then he'll tell you when Wolverine came out in what episode and comic. Yes,
excellent.
That is very nice.
And yeah, the red glow from Cyclops' visor is subtle and looks great.
I think one of the coolest things he's done in here that's super subtle is like seeing the cool whites on Angel's uniform and then the warm whites of his wings.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but it's really, really cool.
Yep. Beautiful work there, Kelly. They look great.
Obviously, this is a Monday in the trade office. Professor X has a tie on.
Yeah.
Yes, as he should do. And he should have a bloody phone in his hand.
Well, I think he does.
Yeah, he's on the, he's telling him what to put on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, what he should be doing is forcing each trade account to order properly.
Probably what he's doing. That's why he built the Cerebro, right?
Yes, it's Cerebro's just to drive sales. That's it.
Awesome. But yeah, beautiful work there, Kelly. Looks great.
It was all working smoothly until that container of Falcons fell into the Atlantic.
Yep, that was just before my time.
So,
nice.
Inhearted.
Yeah, my buddy Ken working on his Tau. He's knocked out a Kroot. Dude, I love the new Kroot. They're so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this model looks great. All of that extra, like the leather work, the strapping.
Yeah.
Everything's looks great on these. But yeah, beautiful work there. And Ken's also working on a bunch more.
Some Farsight enclaves. That's why they all have the Farsight. The Farsight like paint scheme with the dark red.
Yeah. So we'll see some more of those over the next couple of weeks, I expect.
Yeah, I see a whole bunch of Kroot piled up at the back of his desk there too.
Yeah.
I tried to sell those Tau middle ones. I've forgotten what.
Oh, Crisis battle suits. Oh, he froze again.
Yeah. Okay, we'll keep moving on.
It only cost $2.50.
Awesome.
Luis finished up his Space Wolf Guard or Lieutenant, but it's a Wolf Guard.
Yeah.
He looks great. That the axe came out awesome. All the gems are great.
Yeah.
He said it's the first time he's ever done a snow base.
Yep. I'm loving the way that the little bits of snow
on
the bottom of the greave here.
Yeah.
And obviously he's got snow all over the feet really ties it in with the base.
Super cool. And again, it wouldn't be a Space Wolf base or a Space Marine base without some orc skulls on it. So
Yeah. Yep. I always find they're all the ones that I have left over on that sprue of skulls. But yeah, beautiful work, Luis. Good. Mark Koselniak.
Wow,
this
that
is super cool.
Yeah. So this is this is one that he's using as the corpse cart.
Oh, right. I was going to say that's very, very busy.
Yeah, it's got a lot of zombies and a lot of crazy stuff going on. But the
yeah, it looks like the Eidolon of Mathland like cloak, and then the body and all the extra arms look like they're from the War Spites,
right.
The tree revenant dudes.
Yep.
And then I don't know where that pumpkin's from, but it's pretty cool.
Yep. Excellent. Josh said you've got to run. Great seeing Jeff Smith on the show again. Okay, because Josh met you at Gen Con.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah. In his report, he showed us the photo of you holding up the Jeff Smith.
When I was doing my cosplay.
Yeah, because then when Jeff was on, he's like, that's not Jeff.
But yeah, what a depth of behind the scenes takes.
Thank you.
Really awesome. But yeah, have a good one, Josh. Josh is going to be streaming now on his Twitch channel, I expect. So check that out. JP Got Rockets after the show. Mark Sunak. Mark's also working on some stuff for his Machida Corps.
I do like this miniature. I think that's definitely one I've got to pick up.
Yeah, this whole range is super cool. I think all this stuff comes in their combat patrol.
Yeah, yep, it does. The Morbeg Knights.
Yeah, those guys are great.
Nice as well.
Yeah, Mark's done a great job on these.
Yeah, you get all the dudes in the background, so you get all the zombies, you get these three guys, and then you get that one he just showed, that weird. I forget what that guy's called.
Yeah,
those are ghouls, not zombies.
Oh, sorry, right. You get the ghouls, the knights, and then this guy.
Yeah, dear me. The written warning will be in the post.
Awesome.
The only undead I play are vampires and skeletons. I don't play the ones in the middle.
You didn't play the wet ones, just the dry ones?
No, just the dry ones.
Awesome.
Wow.
Next up, Scott Radham. Scott's painted this. He's going to be going to a class, having a class with Matt DiPietro called Painting for Finishers. No, it's called Finishing School. So I think folks who are attending that get to bring along a model that they'll be working on, and Matt will help through the final stages. So really excited to see what
those skin tones are lovely.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? All that work around the eyes.
I almost feel like he should put some gray into his hair, because this orc just reads as old. Like he's missing a bunch of teeth. That's why his top lip is really wrinkly.
Yep. Well, I think that's steps for the finishing school.
Yeah, I like it. I'm excited.
I think it's a whole weekend where he gets to talk about that. So
yeah, keep us posted, man. That's awesome.
But yeah, looks beautiful, Scott.
Do you have a picture of? I know John was working on a bike army. Is that in here somewhere?
I have it. I've skipped back to one. We'll do that right at the very end. Yeah, there we go. Finishing school for finishers. Still
Nice.
super work in progress. Hair is just base coated, very unfinished.
Very nice.
But yeah, beautiful stuff there, Scott. And Scott also painted up the Skaven from the Skaventide box set that he got.
It looks great. That whole box is awesome. There's so much cool shit in that box.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, looking really good. I love the just the way that they're sort of that Caucasian sort of skin tone blends into the
very nice.
The rat.
You usually don't see people put this much time into a single Skaven because it's a horde army.
Scott says that the finishing school for finishers is October 25th, 26th in Vegas at Verco's Vault. He'll give a report and see about some more picks. So we'll post those in the Facebook group, and we'll talk about them on the show.
Very nice.
But yeah, but now looking great there, Scott. Nice one. Next up, so Stephen Ryder.
Old school again.
Yep, working on some more old school dragons. This one's looking very cool.
This looks like either Ralparth or a Grenadier, I think. But
yeah, I think it might be Good idea. But yeah, I'm loving the sort of the rainbow look. The
on his
yellow,
underscales. Yeah.
yellow and green on the underscales there. Yep. It's got a little bit of a sort of Chinese dragon kind of feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
The hair and the antlers. Ralpatha, there we go.
Nice.
Fantastic. Looking great. It seems also painted up this
Toad dudes.
this toad warrior. Need a photographing not in front of the brown, Steve.
He's camouflaged. Now you can't see him. That's
but no, he's looking good. I love him the eyes.
Yeah, very nice.
Really good. And I think we've got one more from Steve. There we go.
Oh, that's an interesting figure.
Yep.
That's the old. I think that's the old Ralpatha Angel of Death.
Wow, I've never seen that one.
So they just previously. This one is Monday Night
Bullywugs.
Frogmen.
Yeah, they're bullywugs.
Bullywugs, and yeah, I'm good there, Steve.
Very cool.
Right, the Ralpatha Angel of Death.
Yep, nailed it.
Nice one. And Stephen isn't the last one that we've got in this week. Tommy Sewell.
These look great.
Yeah.
Yep. So Tommy painted up. Is over the years painted up a bunch of Gene Stealer Cult. Very reminiscent of one of the White Dwarf covers, or it might have even been the Gene Stealer supplement for Space Hulk.
Okay.
But yeah, beautiful style, and he's just recently painted up some terrain to take some photos in front of.
The skin tones on all the hybrids are awesome.
Yeah, magnificent. And they work beautifully with that. The black and gray.
Very nice.
But yeah, awesome stuff. So yeah, Tommy's going to be painting some more photos. I'm pretty sure. But we're looking forward to those. Also, next week. So next week we've got Charity on. Charity is the hobby czar for both LVO and Adepticon. So she'll be talking about hobby seminars, what they're running at LVO. I think tickets for those just went up today, and late November, early December maybe for Adepticon. So we'll get a little bit of a sneak peek on who's coming to that and how that's going to look in Milwaukee. Super cool. We're excited about that. Now, make sure you join us. I did mention that. So we had the. What do I need to do? I need to hit that.
You got one more pick.
One more pick. Okay. Jake did mention John's.
This is one of my favorite pictures of all time. It's so ridiculous.
It's coming.
We're on dial-up, John. This could take a second.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, the sleazy riders.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy.
Dude,
yes.
I was looking at this list. This list is so gross. Like, this is second edition. So in second edition, he's got a squad of 3 speeders, a squadron of 3. I think those are just predators. Those are
predators.
Yeah.
And then a squad of 5 bikes, one's an attack bike, a squad of 7 bikes, one with an attack bike, another squad of 7 with an attack bike, and then another squad of 5 with an attack bike. I was like, this is gross. And they all have full command. There's a chaplain. He's got a tech marine. There's a captain. This list is hard as nails.
This list was designed to do one thing and one thing only, was to not get me ever challenged to play 40K. 40K was never my game, but when you're, especially in the hobby bit that I joined, everybody wanted to take out the person higher than them.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, I come into America, which is way more 40K than Warhammer. Nobody wanted to play me at Warhammer. They wanted 40K, 40K, 40K. And luckily, again, this is going to be their everything in that army was given to me by a bloke called Paul Robbins when they came out. So all of those motorbikes were the test bits of the mold. And he went, "Oh, you're a biker. Here." Cool. And he, I mean, literally gave me what we called a 48 full of motorbike sprues. And I was like, okay. And it was a lovely little kit that went together beautifully. But the real thing is, every single one of those motorbikes launched 3 smoke grenades. So my first turn was every motorbike launched smoke, 24 inches across the table. And if you remember back then every turn you had to randomly roll a direction, and I think it was a D3 for where the smoke marker went.
Yep. When
you've wasted 40 minutes per turn moving the smoke, nobody wants to play you again. It was great.
Which is your intent. Nice.
And the worst thing is the people I played the first time was Blair and Lonnie Mullins. Oh, they were pissed. They were and of course it was like they had all their drippy weapons, all of this, that, there. I didn't move. I just launched smoke.
Nice.
And then moved them, and hours. And of course, eventually the clock runs out, and you have to go home. And it was like, and they never even got through the smoke. It was great.
I mean, but even if you didn't launch the smoke, as long as they got into combat, that list is rock hard. Like every bike gets 2
play against Bo from Army Painter, who took that list to pieces in half an hour. Is we played on a city board, which is not good but very good for his army. Oh my god. Literally, he's doing ping, ping, shoot, shoot, kill, thingy, something there, do this, warp, something, I have no idea to this day what happened. All I know is that my army died, and I may have got 1 casualty.
So that somebody's asking what White Dwarf issue is that? That's actually in Citadel Journal. It's one of the only issues I own, and it's here somewhere. But I have it because John is literally the inside cover.
Excellent. So just quickly, before we wrap up the show, awesome. Scott says, Dave, is this a place where we can see more of Tommy Sewell's work? There is. You can see more of his work in The Art of Volume 5. Thank you very much, Scott, for pointing that out. You can get that through warlordgames.com or ironheartartisans.com. Jess says, amazing work again, painters. Matt Bowles says, John Matthews, it was great to great to see you again. Hope you and yours are doing well and happy journeys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Dave and Jake. Thank you very much, John. Thank you, Army Painter. Have a superior work everyone. Be safe. Have a great week. Steve says, thanks for the show. Scott says, LVO classes have been up for a bit. I'm doing the Swinson Mega class. I heard Verco's was taking it all over at LVO. They are, and Charity is working for Verco's at LVO. So that's how that pans out. Awesome. Okay. And everybody else is saying, thanks, wonderful show. This has been great. So
thank you.
Very cool. Awesome.
Dave, we good?
We are almost good. Okay.
Well, while Dave cues us up, thank you guys so much for joining us. It was awesome. We had over 24 people here at one point. Make sure you guys leave a like and a comment. Try to share it somewhere. A huge thank you to Army Painter for sponsoring us, and I cannot thank John enough. It was so awesome having him here. We miss him. We always look forward to spending time with him. So it was great to have him on, and just having somebody who's kind of worked for 2 of the biggest companies in our industry for like over a decade at each of them is pretty cool. And getting his kind of take on things and seeing behind the scenes and kind of how the sausage is made is always interesting. So Scott, we will see you guys next week. Post stuff in the group. If you guys have any questions, let us know. And as always, do not forget to build, paint, play.
Shut up and sit down.